The strawman is your name written in block letters. Very simple. It was done at birth. What the government did, or the corporations now, not government, what they did is they took your birth certificate and made a second birth certificate with a trust, a CISTI QV trust. They made it in all block letters. And for them to interact with you, they have to interact with you as a fiction, because they're all corporations. Corporation cannot interact with real people. So they made a straw man. They call it a straw man because it has no soul and is spiritually dead. This is happening since the early 1900s. What they've done is really fraud, because they're fraudulently taking your child's birth certificate and make it into a dead entity. The dead entity birth certificate is making billions. So your straw man is considered a dead entity and the corporation can interact with it. If you have to go to court, it's not going to be in your real name because they don't have it. All they have is the dead entity. A signature is under the UCC, which is the fiction, the straw man. Your autograph is the real person. So if you go up to a movie star and says, "Can I have your autograph?" You never say, "Can I have your signature?" It's always autograph because you have flesh and blood. Signature is what you're signing every time they can go into your account and take money.
And every time you do sign a piece of paper, you can bet that that signature of yours is being monetized, securitized.
It is. By the banks, by everybody that you, wherever you sign, credit cards, everything.
Is held to in terms of understanding the law and procedures of court if you choose to represent yourself.
I object again. Is the court using my bond? Where's the appearance bond and the bid bond? I do not understand. I do not comprehend. And I would.
See how everybody got quiet when he said that? Everybody got quiet when he started talking about bid. That's what will happen when you kind of sideswipe them like that. I request that they produce the bid bond on this matter. See, one of the things that they're not going to do is they're never going to lie or deny something. They're going to use obfuscation. All right? They're going to figure out a way to get around it. They won't directly deny what you're saying. Start paying attention to that. It's going to be obfuscation is the tool that they use, and just run over you and make you look stupid and do things like that. You have to prepare for court, and you got to be prepared. You have to anticipate almost, if you're going to go into court, you need to have the ability to anticipate how they're going to respond to you and what you're going to say in response to that.
Where is my bond? I need my bond back. I need my bid bond. Or I'll write one and overnight it. Where is my bid bond? And who is the highest bidder of the case?
All right.
Crickets.
On
Crickets.
this case, State of Washington versus Mohammed Ismail Idris, case number 3A0257.
Do you see how he just handled that? I ignored him. That's why it comes in. You have to ask them 3 times. Ask for the bid bond. That's what I get here is silence. I don't even care if it's not, if it ain't even in court. I could be speaking to an attorney, and hit him with the bid bond. He gets silent. That bond is what Gene Keating was talking about. It's a bid bond. They form a bond. See, the reason, why is there a bond? Okay, this is for everybody listening. There's a bond because the statutes represent a charge. A charge is a lien. A charge is a lien. Let's look at that real quick. Look at that real quick. What is a charge? What are charges? When somebody puts some charges on you, you ever stop and think about what that word means? What a charge is? Let's look at it real quick and see if we can get some insight into this word charge. All right, so back to our trusty Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. Let's go to the C's. Let's look up this word charge. Here we go, charge. Okay, charge. A formal accusation of an offense as a preliminary step to a prosecution, a murder charge. Okay, we all familiar with that, the general term, but look how many senses of the word, look how many different definitions of the word charge we have. How do we know what meaning they are using when they call we're getting a charge? It says an instruction or command, all right, jury charge. Okay, review the charge for appealable error. 4, an assigned duty or task or responsibility. But here's the one, an encumbrance or lien or claim. So if somebody's putting a charge on you, could they be having a claim against you? And if they have a claim against you, so if, let's say they're possession with the intent to distribute, that's a charge. Well, there is an amount associated with that because it's dealing in commerce. This is where the debtors' prisons came from. Under Edward I, with the statute merchant, in case you're wondering, well, where did this come from? It's not nothing new. They've been doing this for the last 1,000 years. So a charge, possession with the intent to distribute, okay, that's $1 million charge. They don't tell you that, but it's $1 million on the books. It's showing in accounts receivable. So when you come in and you start arguing, they say, okay, well, you don't want to pay the debt. You are an absconding debtor. So we're going to hold your body, and then we're going to take this debt, convert it into a bond, and sell it. Now you get an indication of how the government is funding themselves, all right, because they'd already told you that all your taxes, the 100% of the Reagan, he did the investigation, and 100% of y'all taxes get just paid on the interest. So how's government funding themselves? They having to make money through charges. That's why you see this mania for writing you traffic tickets, and you're getting a charge for every little thing. Because money is created off of debt. So one of the rules is there is no money. The reason that's the number one rule, because everything in our system today revolves around that fact. That since there isn't any money, debt is being used as money, so everybody is looking for an opportunity to create money by creating debt. Debtors' prisons.
Is, of course, they will say something like, for the record, state your name. And this is where the trick is played on you. Because you don't know who you are, you will say, my name is Richard Vobes. And at that moment, they've got you. Because effectively what's happened is you've said, I'm the top hat, or the dog, or the train, or the iron. You've become the player of the game. You've become the fiction, because their world can only work on the fiction. A real living man cannot enter a real court. They cannot deal with you. So they have to get you to be the legal fiction. And so what happens then is they become the executive, they become the sole beneficiary, and you become a legal representative of the trust, but you end up paying out of your own money. So what you should do, of course, is tell them the truth, because you're not a capitalized version of your name. You're not the top hat. You're not the character that's playing the legal game. Of course you're not. You're a real living man. You're the executor of the estate of the top hat, or the capitalization, the persona of your living man. That's who you are, just as in Monopoly. So you would say, well, I'd like to introduce myself. I am the executor and the sole beneficiary of the estate of Richard Vobes, the legal persona. but I am the executor. And as there is only 3 people that can be in a trust, it means the judge or the prosecutor or the Crown Court, the clerk of the court, is the trustee. The role can switch around depending on who is taken the role, but one of them will have that role. They will in fact have a checkbook ready to pay should you announce.
Imagine that when you're born, a file is opened about you, but not in your name as a living baby. Instead, the government creates a version of you on paper, a legal character, and sets up an imaginary estate filled with assets like gold, land, or oil. These aren't real. They're just numbers stored in a system, like a game profile with credits. You don't control this file, because the system assumes you've gone missing. In legal terms, you're presumed dead until proven otherwise. While you live your life, the people managing this file use your paperwork, like signatures, contracts, and taxes, to unlock credit and settle debts, often making profit from your trust. They never tell you it exists. They keep you focused on money and bills, which are just promises to pay, not backed by anything physical like silver or gold. To change the story, you must declare you're alive, not just biologically, but in law. That means stepping forward, reclaiming your name, and proving you're capable of managing your estate. You become the executor instead of the forgotten child, and suddenly the trust can no longer run without your say.
You are the registered keeper of your car. You're not the owner, you're the keeper in their eyes. Now they'll argue that point, and a lot of people will argue that point, but it's quite easy to quell this argument and say, well, okay, if you don't put tax on the car, then they'll come and take your car. Now, in the legal world, taking anything from someone without a legal mechanism to do so is theft.
The legal system cannot deal with humans. It can only deal with pieces of paper. Only common law can deal with humans. So at your birth, they created a piece of paper with your name on it, in capitals, just like any other corporation. This is done to dupe you later in life into thinking that you are the legal entity and not you. Then imaginary penalties and cost are imposed on the straw man, and you, thinking you're it, pay them.
And it's kind of like an overcoat, this legal fiction. You know, as soon as you put it on, as soon as they invite you to put this overcoat on, and you do so, now they can grab hold of the overcoat and throw it in jail with you in it. But until you put that overcoat on, they can't do anything to you, because you are not that name. You know, you think you are, you know, you're taught you are, but you're not.
The deception is done through the manipulation of words and language.
But that to me is legalese. It's just jargon that no one really understands, and because no one really understands it, no one ever questions it. We basically have a discussion that everybody is taught incorrect, but because everybody's taught incorrect, they believe it's correct.
Legalese is a whole language of its own. It's a complete legal jargon that's not really designed for anybody to understand it other than those that are supposedly supposed to be enforcing it. And it's something that's so complicated that not even police officers understand what they're saying.
What is wonderful is that they create their own language called legalese, and it has a completely different interpretation from English. You know, we're supposed to have you know, this sort of understanding that we were within the law, and yet they're not even using the same language as we are.
The easiest way to understand legalese is to realize that there are many English words that have more than one meaning, depending on whom you are talking to. If I were to ask you what a person was, you'd probably say a human being, but that's you or I. If you were talking to someone in the law society, i.e. a police officer, lawyer, judge, etc., they have a different dictionary to you or I, and person could mean company or corporation, i.e. the legal fiction.
You know, if you tell a lie often enough, it becomes truth, or certainly the perception of truth. So legalese is jargon that nobody understands other than those who actually come up with a jargon that really, really deeply understand it. And even police officers don't understand it, or magistrates, or even judges for that matter.
Tax is probably the best way, the only way better than fractional reserve banking to starve a community is taxation. And it wouldn't be that case if the tax was actually spent on the people and on the land, but because it's not, it becomes a starving of the people. This again comes back to corruption. And tax would be fine. We'd be living in an amazing health service, incredible roads, all the rest of it, if all the money that went into the taxation pot was paid for what it was supposed to be for. My understanding is it isn't. The problem that we have is the implications for its non-use is that, other than fraud, it's the only debt that can deprive you of your liberty. It's the only debt that they can put you in jail for is tax evasion or tax fraud, which is pretty serious, really, because you can ignore as many credit cards or loans as you like and you can never be put in jail for any of that. But if you try and not pay your tax for a while, they'll really like to let you know about that. Funny thing is, I don't see many representatives of people like Amazon or big corporates that aren't paying their tax in the slammer. Maybe they should be.
Income tax in the UK first started in 1799 as a temporary measure to cover the costs of the Napoleonic Wars. It is still a temporary tax today, which expires each year on the 5th of April and has to be renewed as a provision in the annual financial bill. Income tax was withdrawn in 1816, but was re-established in 1842 and has stayed since. Because of this, human beings are the only creatures on the planet that pay to live on it. The government does not own the product of your labor. If they did, you would be a slave. Since they do not own the product of your labor, then taxation can be defined as theft, or more accurately, extortion and blackmail. No man can own another, so no man can own the fruits of another man's labor. Most people will argue that it is a necessary evil and that it's legal because the government say that it is. How else would we pay for hospitals, police, roads, and so on? Well, reaching into your own pocket to help a good cause is noble. Reaching into someone else's pocket under the threat of force is despicable. Here is a quick analogy. I run a construction firm and I knock at your door and demand £10,000 to build an extension, or I'll take all your stuff and throw you in a cage. Essentially, that's what the government do when they tax you. They say they're going to supply you with services and protect you, but if you don't pay them, just like the mafia, they are the ones that come after you and use force and violence to get the money out of you. The trouble is, most people never look at these situations from these angles, and so rarely see the deception that is constantly being pulled over our eyes. A large percentage of all the tax you pay is used on war, bailing out the banks, and paying off the national debt. It has been calculated that 47% of all your income is spent on tax. You work 5 to 6 days a week and get to keep 54% of your wages. Then you have to pay for your mortgage or rent, gas, electricity, water, food, clothes, and that's just the basics. No wonder both parents have to work and work constantly, unlike families of just 50 years ago. You are a slave, and you are in a metaphorical cage that just like Neo, you cannot touch, taste, or smell. A prison created by the mind of man. Governments essentially run human farms and feed you the perception of freedom. Governments do not make money within themselves. The government's primary function is to trick money out of your pocket and feed it into their business, so they can carry on with wars, deception, and human farming, all in plain sight.
They have no lawful basis for whatever they do. There's, they might claim they have a legal basis. Now, legal is a different thing altogether. It's essentially based on contract. You have to contract with them before it becomes law.
This is a prison without bars. This is a prison without big walls to keep them in. It's just a prison of the mind.
The main implication of not paying tax is that you'll grow a set of balls and you'll turn into an adult. That's the main implication.